Hello. You probably noticed from our newsletter that recently we've been publishing quite a few maps for the London Borough of Enfield. I think there have been 9 maps so far, and there's another one to come, covering from Edmonton and Winchmore Hill, Palmer's Green, up to Enfield itself. The author for those has been Pamela Taylor, long-standing author of ours, and I thought I'd have a little chat with her. I have with me Pamela Taylor, who's one of our regular authors, and recently she's been writing the historical notes for a series of maps of the roundabout the London Borough of Enfield. I've got a few of them here. They're Palmer's Green, Winchmore Hill, and some of Enfield itself. And so, hello, Pamela.
Hello, Alan.
Just trying to think back to when you first wrote for us. It's probably longer ago than either of us like to think of. 1980s, I would have thought.
I think
more precise.
1985.
1985. What was the first map you wrote the notes for?
East Finchley. I was archivist at Barnet at the time, and you came through the door because you were looking for maps, because you had to take the maps up to your camera. So you came into all the London Borough record offices, I think, to see what we'd got. And we had some of the neighbouring ones for you as well. We had Hampstead, which was out of borough, but we had it. So you took what we had, and then we all started writing for you as well.
Those were the days. Yes, I used to come down to London and scour the libraries, and then travel back north with a big, great tube of maps to photograph, and then return back about a week or 10 days later. Happy days, really.
Yeah.
So you were archivist at Barnet then?
I had a job share with it. We were 2 half-timers, so I and my colleague had a job share there. Yeah.
And you mentioned earlier, you reminded me that for a little while, for about 5-6 years, you were my sort of London editor. Perhaps you'd like to tell the viewers what that entailed.
Well, that meant that I got on the train with the rolls of maps and came up to you and then came back down again, which was fun. And I went round the central London record offices. I didn't really do the boroughs. You'd done them, I think, but I went to LMA and Guildhall and so on, and saw what they'd got, and saw if they would be prepared to lend them, because that was always the issue. Would they be allowed to lend them? And then I think I did some of the editing for some of your other London writers as well. Got out the red pen and got going. So that was fun. I enjoyed that a lot. And then I think you moved further south again, so it wasn't necessary anymore, so I stopped doing that. But I don't think I've ever stopped writing for you.
No, you haven't. No, I moved down to Leighton Buzzard, of course, in 1991, where I lived for several years. And so I was able to go into London when I wanted, really. In fact, I used to do the writing in the morning, then round about lunchtime, I got tired of my own company, so I get the train into London often. What would be your background? A lot of our writers, their expertise is industrial archaeology, railways, transport, Victorian history. Yours isn't, is it?
No, and I think, as many of your readers may have spotted, it's medieval history, but fairly local. I did a PhD before I met you on the medieval estates of the Bishopric of London, which is quite good because it actually teaches you about boundaries and the importance of just topography generally. And it's still, I know I probably write too much about boundaries in my map notes, but I can still actually sometimes look at a 1930s map and think, oh, that's interesting. That's really interesting. What is that boundary doing exactly there? So it's quite useful, and I'm not too scared of manors, which is also quite advantageous. And I like banging on about how most manors in our area in London don't give up till the 1920s, not finally. They go on much longer than we were all taught. We were all taught parishes took over in the 16th century, end of. And actually, anywhere with a big, strong manor, they keep going together. for years. It's probably not very relevant for the map notes, but I enjoy it.
Yes.
It's like people who really know their transport. There's, you know, there's stuff that keeps them interested, which is below the surface of what you write, but it's nice.
You dig away and you think, oh, that's great, and you
Yeah.
follow leads,
Yeah.
don't you?
Yeah.
Yes.
It takes me longer to get really enthused about a bus garage, though I'm getting there. That's partly because when you and I started, you weren't doing the 1930s edition at all. It was too close to copyright, wasn't it? I can't remember when you started doing those.
It wasn't the copyright issue. It was really that it just seemed too close to the present day.
Okay.
And but of course, we've been going almost 40 years now. So what was old, what was recent is now old. Readers might be interested in other work you do. This is Victoria County History book, which Pamela wrote about 5 years ago, I think. A very thorough and fascinating study of really a very small area of London, Knightsbridge area, which is an area I'm not sure you've written about for us. You did one of the Kensington maps, I think.
Oh, actually, yes, I've done all the Kensington. I did a lot of Kensington ones for you, but actually it was precisely looking for your Paddington map, because obviously your titles don't quite tie with the boundaries. It was when I stood in Kensington Gardens and thought, what on earth is that boundary doing there? And it was rather like I fell through sort of Alice in Wonderland rabbit hole, except it was a boundary in Kensington Gardens, and it just opened up stuff that no one had seen before. So it was fascinating to do. So I do owe you the initial spur, actually.
Your most recent work for us was these little group of maps all around the London borough of Enfield, from Edmonton right up to, well, outside Enfield to the border into Waltham Cross and so on. What did you look for there, and what did you discover? Any?
Well, I do try to look first at what the map is showing me, actually. I try not to impose too much of a pattern on the map. So I started with the Edmonton one. So that was proper London slums, actually. And that was interesting, the relationship between cheap workmen's trains. It was one of those cases where the company put cheap workmen's trains through and the jerry builders flocked in and the slum conditions followed like that. So that was all perfectly interesting, because it had been an area where Keats and the rest had been. And again, that's before your maps note, but everybody goes on about the grand houses. So you always do the 18th and 19th century earlier stuff as well. And then as I moved up to leafier parts of Enfield, it changed. But given Enfield, the London Borough, touches Barnet, I did know the area a little, and it was just really interesting to find out more about it and about the Lee Valley on the other side. I was walking Walthamstow Marshes for you just as lockdown pretty much began to happen. Everybody was taking their last free walk around Walthamstow Marshes. It was good fun.
Yes. And you've now been doing some further west in London. Perhaps you'd like to give the viewers a taste of what's to come.
Yes. So my first job as an archivist was actually at Hammersmith in the late 60s. And I have done plenty of maps for you for Hammersmith and Fulham, which again is a sort of homecoming, because we live there too. But this time I've been slightly further west in Acton and Gunnersbury. And a bit of, Gunnersbury's in Ealing, so a bit of Ealing. No, Gunnersbury's now in Hounslow, doesn't matter. Anyway, Ealing, Chiswick, Hounslow, all interesting. Old Brentford, fascinating, particularly for a medievalist.
Yeah, and one of these infuriating maps where the Ordnance Survey left part of it blank, which we have to cope with occasionally.
Yes, I thought that was just a thing in the first editions, because I remember seeing those 1860s parish maps where they're only on the parish. So if half the map's another parish, you don't get it. But this was into more government imposed austerity, wasn't it? Saying we're only going to do a few counties if there's a lot of change, and don't do the next county if it's not on our list. So I've just done one for you where Kew should catch the eye, and it's this large egg-shaped void that catches the eye instead.
Yeah, and
Little
yet there's enough on the map for it
Oh, there's
still to
plenty.
be
There's
worth,
tons. There's
worth
absolutely
doing.
tons. I
Yeah,
had to cut my own words back, so
yeah.
there was plenty to talk about.
And of course, we look quite far ahead these days. From the beginning of writing the notes to actual publication can be 6 months or even longer sometimes. But there's a new 2 or 3 new maps, which I think have only arrived on your doormat this morning, I think, which I sent. We're sending you south of the river.
I'm going to Sidcup. I was brought up in what's now the London Borough of Bromley. So I had a godmother in Sidcup. So I did used to go and spend some time in Sidcup, but I don't know it at all. I haven't been there as an adult, I don't think. So it'll be absolutely fascinating to. And I've done Bexley and Bexley Heath for you. So
Yes.
I'm beginning to get that bit properly in focus. You go through places without knowing if you take that road where you'll come out. But once you've really done these maps, then you know how everything fits together, which is, it's like being a jigsaw addict. It's very satisfying when the bits fall together properly.
It is wonderful, isn't it, when you go to an area which you only know slightly and suddenly you're exploring it in much greater depth. I think with most of our authors, I like authors who are willing to go to various areas to spread their net fairly widely and bring fresh ideas and fresh eyes to a place. And occasionally we send you outside London, I think.
Or occasionally I say to you, I'm outside London. Do you have a map for this really nice place I'm in?
Yes, and I very often disappoint you because
of course. But sometimes you come good. I did Castle Douglas for you, didn't I?
You did, and Romsey.
Yes.
Romsey,
and Louth in Lincolnshire.
Louth, yeah.
Hastings,
yeah.
Winchester, all the really nice places.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it does feel, I know you feel this as well, if one's just somewhere by chance and there isn't a map to write, you think this is a wasted opportunity. Because your eye automatically does the stuff about the buildings and the street layouts. You think, oh, I'm not going to be able to use this. This is annoying.
Yes. Well, I shall look forward to, I'm looking forward to reading about Acton and so on first, but look forward to Sidcup in 2 or 3 months' time, probably.
Thank you.
And we'll be in regular touch. Pamela, I don't know how many maps you've written the notes for, 150?
It must be coming up to 200. I think it's just shy of 200 now.
Yeah. Great servant to the series over the years. Much appreciated. So,
okay, Alan, thank you.
Thanks for talking to us.